Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make this beaded macrame bracelet with a scalloped edge to it, and it looks a little something like this. So this is just my version here with the materials that I've used, and you get this really nice effect going all the way around. And I've just finished it off with some ribbon ends and some findings here, clasp and extender chain. You can always use whatever clasp you want to, but then this is the one I'm going to show you how to do in this tutorial here. I've also done a previous version. Looks like this, so this is a little bit more simple. You can see here you got more beads into the design. So I've got another tutorial already how to do this one, so if you want to learn how to do that one first possibly, I'm going to put a link to that down in the description box below. But otherwise I'm going to be showing you this one in this tutorial, so if you want to learn how to make this, then keep watching. So it's then these materials here that we're going to need. Now first of all we'll need our cord. The cord that I'm working with here is a 0.4mm Eslon, and I'm just working with this nice bright red colour. It goes nicely with the beads that I'm working with. Now as for the beads, the largest ones here are kind of the main beads, and these are 6mm rounds. I'm just working with some copper coated faceted agate gemstone beads. This is what I've chosen to work with here. You can use whatever you want to. The other beads that I'm working with are some 4mm rounds, and these are just faceted agate as well, but just in a black colour. Again, you can do whatever combination you want to. And then here I have my ribbon ends. I'm going to use these to finish off my bracelet with at the end. These specific ones are 12mm in the width. And then also to use with these we're going to need whatever findings you want to finish off the bracelet with. So whatever clasp you want to use. I'm going to be using an extender chain, a lobster claw clasp, and then some jump rings there. You can use whatever clasp you want to. So let's get it all together and let's get started. Then what we need to do first of all is cut some cords ready. And what I have here is 10 lengths of about 1.5 meters each. And then what I've just done is put them all together at the end and got about 10 centimeters or so in from there and tied a regular overhand knot just to keep them all together. And then we're going to start from this point and working with the long tails. So I'm then going to be working on my project macrame board here. It's going to be a nice surface to work on and make it much easier. And then I'm also going to be using some T-pins here to help pin my work in along the way. So I then take all my cords that I've already prepared here with the knot on the one end, and I've got my long tails coming down towards me. Those are the ones I'm going to be making the actual bracelet with. Then I'm just going to take my pins and pin them through the knot here. So basically fasten it onto the board so we can start working with them. Just so it's comfortable and easy to work with. Like that. And then the very first thing that we need to do is start making our very first row here, because we need to then get all the cords into the proper position so we can start making the actual bracelet. So we just have them all coming out from the knot here. We're going to start from one side. I'm just going to start taking a cord that's naturally coming towards the left. I'm going to separate that out from all the others and then bring it over the top across of them. So just lay it across the top of the other cords there. Then I'm just going to grab another cord that's kind of as close to that one as possible, again so towards the left side, and just keep grabbing cords that are close to each other. And then I'm going to make my first knot. So the first one I took that lies above all of them, that's the holding cord, and the next one that I took that's coming underneath here, that's going to be the working cord. So I'm going to make double half hitches. I take the working cord around my finger and the holding cord there, back around and through the loop, so that when you hold it like this you get a 6. And then I'm going to take the holding cord and hold it over towards the right, because I want the row of knots here to be going towards the right but at a bit of an angle, so come downwards a little bit as well. So how you make and determine where the row is going to go is depending on where you hold your holding cord. That's one. I'm going to do another one around your finger and through the loop to make it a double half hitch. Tighten that. Then leave that out to the side. Then we need to grab another cord. So just the next one that you feel is close to it, to the place that you're working, coming out underneath the holding cord again. So that's the next working cord. We'll make another double half hitch with that and tighten that all the way up. So this knot is now lying right next to the first one that we made. And again, when you made your double half hitch, put that out to the side. Grab your next cord, and then this is how we're going to keep building up the row basically, all the way out to the side. Make your double half hitch with the next one, using up every single cord. So keep doing this until you used up all the cords that are coming out underneath there from the knot. So now that I then completed the row here, I used up every single cord from that knot. Then I have all those kind of going out towards that side, and my holding cord going towards the opposite side than where I took it from. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take one of my pins here, and I want to place this right where this row of knots end. And I'm going to place it, first of all, so the row is going downwards a little bit at an angle, not too much though, just a nice amount. And then the holding cord that I used throughout that row needs to go around the outside of that pin, because what we need to do now is go over all this again and make our next row. So this row is going to be right below the previous one, the first one that we made here, but I'm going to use the same holding cord. It's going to come back over the opposite direction. That's why I'm just using this pin to kind of have as leverage against it. Then I'm going to take all my working cords that I used to make that first row, kind of bring them downwards here, be a little bit easier to grab onto. Then I'm going to start doing the exact same thing but using opposite hands. So I take the holding cord back over the top of all the working cords again, but in the opposite direction. Then I take the very first working cord that I run into, which is quite easy to see now because they're all separated out from the previous row. I'm going to make a double half hitch with that, and then tighten that all the way up next to the pin there and underneath the previous row. Once more here for a double. And then when you tighten these knots, you want to make sure you tighten them so this row that we're making now gets as nice and tight to that previous one as possible. So nice and close to that. I'm then going to take that working cord that I just used, put it out towards the side to get it out of the way for now. Then I'm going to move on to the next working cord. I want to make a double half hitch with that as well. Tighten that, and what I like to do to make sure my rows get nice and tight together is the holding cord, just push it up above the previous row a little bit and make sure that they get nice and close together like that. Now we need to start incorporating our cords into the row as well. So the very first working cord we used, like I said, put that out to the side. We need to leave that out, but the one that I just used now, so the second working cord, I need to bring that into the row. So that also becomes a holding cord here. So all I do is bring that over the top of the other ones with the existing holding cord that we already have. Then I grab my next working cord, make a double half hitch with that around both of the holding cords, so they're basically just acting as one holding cord. I'm going to tighten that all the way down after the previous knot, like that. And then again we do the same thing with this one. So the working cord that we just used, we bring that over with the holding cords. So we now have an extra one. Again, they're all working as one. Grab the next working cord, make a double half hitch, just like this, working our way over towards the other side. Again, take the working cord in with the holding cords. So you can now see that the amount of holding cords are gradually increasing here. And it will also affect the row. The row itself will become a little bit chunkier than just having one holding cord. And that's going to add to the look as well. Then we bring in that working cord we just used over with the holding cords. Grab the next one. Always make sure you grab the very next working cord and you don't cross them over if you can help it. Make your double half hitch. Like that. Bring that in with the holding cords. Grab the next one. Make a double half hitch with this working cord. Making sure as well, keep checking as you go, that your rows are staying nice and close together, right underneath each other there. Again, bring this in. So we now have a bunch of holding cords here. Now we've got two working cords left. I'm going to grab the very next one, make a double half hitch with that. Tighten that just like the other times. But then this one, we're not bringing that in. So the second last one, we're leaving out as well. Put that out to the side. Then I'll grab the very last working cord that I've got left. Make a double half hitch with that. To finish off this row right here, before the next step then. And also for now we're just leaving that down here, because then we need to move on to the next step. So what we've done is the very first working card we used, we left that out, then we incorporated all the others into the holding card, except for the last two as well on the row. So this is the point that we're at now. So then the next step is to continue the row that we're just working on now, using the very last working card out of that row. So what I'm going to do is I just made the very last double half hitch. My working card is coming downwards here. So what I'm going to do is take my working card underneath all the holding cards and basically swap hands. So they're each still doing the same job, but we just swapped hands. So that means I'm going to take the working cards coming underneath, still a single one, take it around all the holding cards in my finger, back around and through the loop. So we get a 6 here, and then we need to tighten this knot, and we're kind of going to hold it, and you can help with your finger and nail to push the knot all the way up tight against the previous one. You need to do another one to make a double half hitch, like that. And then what we need to do as well is have my row of knots coming downwards here and start making that curve that's going to go around the bead. So the next thing is to take the working card back underneath the holding cards again. So every time we make a double half hitch in this case, we're bringing it back underneath to the other side. So make a double half hitch with opposite hands again. Tighten this all the way up. Working our way downwards here. So this is the third knot that I've done with this. Because we made the first one, the cord came this direction. We made the second one where the cord came the other direction. And now the third one where it's coming inwards again towards the bracelet in the third direction. Bring it back underneath all the holding cards again. Make your double half hitch. Tighten that. And again, how you hold your holding cards helps determine where your row is going to go with the knots here. As you can see, I'm trying to work in that curve as I'm actually making my knots, just like that. So that's the fourth one. Bring it back underneath the other side. Always make sure you bring the working card underneath the holding cards. Make your double half hitch. Tighten it all the way up. So this is the fifth one. Back underneath again. The opposite side with opposite hands. Double half hitch. This is the sixth one. And what we need is a total of 8 knots here. So flip back and forth between the sides 8 times. Double half hitch. You can see really getting the curve in there now as well, because of how I'm holding my holding cords as I'm making the row. This is the seventh knot. So we have the last one left, so we need to take the working cord underneath all the holding cords and make our last double half hitch in this case. Just like that. So now you can see you have this row continued, but making that curve as well. But by taking the working cord underneath every time, you can't see anything on the top, but you'll be able to see kind of all the knots on the back, but it's nice and seamless on the top there. So then now what we need to do is incorporate a bead, because that has to sit right in there in that curve. And to do that, I'm going to take the second cord that I left out, so the one second from the end as well, one that's basically inside of that loop that we're just making now. Then I'm going to take my 6mm round, so this is the 6mm bead, and put that onto that length of cord. Just feed it onto it and let it drop all the way down, so it's going to sit right there in that curve. Then I'm going to use this cord as well to make my next knot, to also cage the bead in place. I'm going to bring that cord with the bead on it, and it's going to be my next working cord coming underneath all these holding cords. So it's going to sit like this. So I'm going to make a double half hitch with this and then tighten that so my knot sits right after the last one that I made on the curve. So there we go. That's now fastened the bead in place, and also we used that cord that we left out in the row up there. So then now what we need to do is make another row of knots here, working our way from this side all the way to the other side again. So basically the same as the one we did before we made the curve for the bead. The only difference is now it's opposite. So up here we added in the working cord every time to get rid of them there so we don't have them hanging down. Here what we're going to do is the opposite. So every time we make a knot, we take one of the holding cords out of the bunch. So I like to take ones that are kind of furthest towards the back there, the underside. Just separate that out. It's going to be the next working cord. Just take that, make a double half hitch around the remaining holding cords, and then tighten that all the way up after the previous knot that we just made, making a double half hitch here. So that's one more working cord that we got there. So we're going to be building up the working cords again, and then lessening the amount of holding cords that we have. Separate out another one out of the bunch, make a double half hitch with that, and as we're doing that we're also building our row. That's going to reach over to the other side again, and like that. Separate out your next one, make a double half hitch every single time, and you'll be able to start seeing that the row is building here. We're then going to have cords coming out from below that row, all the working cords that we're using. Keep doing this until we don't have many holding cords left. Use one at a time here. Now I've only got 3 holding cords left. Separate out another one, make a double half hitch, building your row. Make sure it's a nice straight row going over to the opposite side from where it's coming from. Now I've only got 2 holding cords left. I'm going to take one of them, separate it out, make my last double half hitch around the other one, and then we're back down to just having 1 holding cord left here and having all the others separated out, so we have all these working cords again. So we now have this, it's going to reach over to the other side, so just like that. But then what we're going to do is also add in our next bead. And here is where I'm going to take my little 4mm bead, so in this case that's the black one I'm using. I'm going to grab the remaining cord that we left out, so the very first working cord from the top row there that we left out, the one that we haven't used on this bottom section yet. I'm going to grab that and then add my bead onto that cord and then let it drop all the way down, just like the other one that we did. So just like that. It's going to drop down until it can't go any further. Then I'm going to take that cord that I just added the bead onto, bring it underneath the holding cord we're making this row with. And then the same principle as before, we need to kind of cage that bead in. So we do that by using that cord as the next working cord to make a double half hitch. Tighten that so that knot gets formed right after the last knot and also gets tightened right up below the bead. So another one for a double, and here can help just tightening the first half of the knot first and then do the other half, because you want it to be nice and tight and sit all close together. So just like that. So there we have the first little section basically. So that's how you do that. Now we need to move on to the next one, and this section is going to basically be the exact same, but it's just going to be set on the other side, so it's going to be mirrored. So that means we need to start from the left here. I'm going to grab the very furthest cord to the left. That's the first working cord coming from that previous row that we've just been making. Bring that over all the others towards the right here. That's the holding cord for this row. Then I'm going to grab the very next cord. It's coming after that. Make sure you grab the very next one. This was then the original one that we have. It's actually with the one where the 6mm bead is sitting on. Then I'm going to make double half hitch with the working cord around this new holding cord here, and then I want to tighten this right close up below the previous row, like that. And again, if you remember from up here, because this is the first working cord, we need to leave that out to the side. So just put it all the way out to the side so we don't get it tangled up with the others. And now move on to the next working cord that's coming underneath. Make a double half hitch, like that. Again, tighten it all the way up so your rows get nice and tight. Now this is the point where we need to incorporate all our working cords into the holding cord as we go. So the same principle as up here, we're just working in the other direction. So I'm going to take the working cord that I just used and bring it in with the holding cord, so I now have 2 holding cords here. And then just while I'm at it as well, because I have a bit more work done, I'm just going to take another pin and pin it out here just so it fastens it down a bit more and makes it easier to work with. I'm not going through any of the work, I'm just going in between the bead and the curve there, the knot work, just to not damage any of the knots or the cord. So I've got the 2 holding cords now. I'm going to grab the very next working cord, make a double half hitch with that, tighten that all the way up till it won't go any further, and making sure that this row as well is going to be right underneath the previous one. Every time you use the working cord, working your way over, you bring it in with the holding cords. So this is the one where we get 1 more holding cord every time we make a knot. So we're gradually increasing the amount of holding cords, but they're still all acting as one. Making a double half hitch, bring it in with the holding cords, grab the next working cord, working our way over to the opposite side. So this is now all the same that we've already done, it's just basically in the opposite direction. So that's what can be a little bit confusing with a lot of macrame work in general, is you kind of have to do both left and right, which sometimes can get a bit confusing. Double half hitch with this one, getting away towards the end. Bring that in with the holding cords. Now I have 3 cords left in total. I have 2 working cords from the previous row, but then I also have the holding cord from the previous row. So that means I have 3, but I'm only going to use the last 2, like I showed you up here, that I'm going to leave out. So the next one, the 3rd from last, going to make a double half hitch with this as well. And that's also going to be brought in with all the others, because now I have 2 cords left, and it's the 2nd from last one that I need to leave out first, along with the very first one that we used. You can see here as well that this row of knots has now gotten much chunkier. Basically the opposite of the one right above it, that got thinner and thinner along the way. So this one that I've just used, 2nd last cord that we've got left, that means I'm leaving it out. Then I've got the one that was a holding cord in the previous row. I'm bringing that down underneath all these holding cords, and then just using that as the last working cord. Tighten that nicely. So there we go, and that's the beginning row for the next section. Now we're at this point where on this side we have to make that curve, and that's exactly the same principle as over here. So what I'm going to do is swap hands again, and we need to just continue this row with this same working cord. So I'll make a double half hitch, tighten that all the way up, just after the previous knot there, and then we're gradually going to start getting that curve into the row as well. Remembering we're going to make the exact same amount of knots as well as we did on the other side. So that means in this case I'm going to also make 8. So this is the 3rd one. And then we're doing our 4th one. So keep making these back and forth until you made 8 in total. So I now made all my 8 knots here and made sure that my working cord is coming outward for the last 8th knot. And then it's time to add in a bead again, and this is the 6mm one, just like the outside one on the other side. So the one that's inside of the curve basically. And then we need to take that cord from the row that we left out, that's closest to the curve, add our bead onto that again, and let it drop all the way down so it sits nicely in the curve there. Then we need to fasten it in place, so bring that cord with the bead on underneath all the holding cords, make a double half hitch, and then as you tighten that, it's going to sit just nicely inside that curve. And the double half hitch to fasten it completely. So there we go. That's now that bead captured in place. And now we're at the point where we need to continue the row to the opposite side again. But this one, again the opposite, instead of adding in the working cord every time, so the row gets chunkier and chunkier, we now need to take it out every time we make a knot. So I separate out one cord, make a double half hitch with that around the rest of the holding cords that's left, tighten that, all the way down after the previous knot. Grab the next holding cord you want to separate out. I'm going to grab that one there and then make a double half hitch. And this is repeating exactly what we did up in the previous section. So the last row in the previous section there, we're gradually taking out one cord at a time from the holding cords, and then we're getting all these working cords pointing straight downwards once we've done the row. So keep doing this all the way across until you used up them all. You only have the one holding cord left. So I then made my last knot there, so I've only got the one holding cord left, and now we need to connect the two sides together, and this is where we need to add in the 4mm bead. So I grab this cord, the very first one we left out from the beginning of this section, add my 4mm bead onto that, let it drop all the way down. It's going to sit in between the two ends, and then bring that underneath the last holding cord, the single holding cord there. Then to tighten it and fasten it in place, make a double half hitch with the cord the bead is sitting on, and then as we tighten that, it's going to bring those two sides together and have this section then end up being complete. Again, to make it a double, and then just tighten the first half again before you tighten the second half to make sure it's sitting nice and tight. So we don't ideally want any loose cord to be able to see that anywhere. We want it all nice and tight. So that is the second section complete now, and that's basically all you keep doing. We now want to start with the next section, which again is the opposite, so mirror to the one that we just done. So that's going to be just like the first one. So all you do to start off is go to the opposite side. So I'm going to go to my right side now, take the very first cord on the right, bring it over all the others, start making your next row of knots. So grab the very first cord coming underneath, that's the first working cord, make a double half hitch, and remember the first cord we leave out, and then we take the next one and continue this row, and this is then we want to keep adding in every time we make a knot. The working cord we used, remember to add that in with your holding cord, so we're gradually increasing the amount of holding cords that we have right until the end, where you then have to leave the cord out that's meant for the 6mm bead, and then make that curve on the edge as well to go around the bead. So that's the exact same thing that I've already showed you. So basically all you want to do is keep doing this, building your bracelet here if that's what you want to make, from side to side, so you get this really nice effect. So keep doing this until you reach the length that you need, minus obviously the clasp that you want to use, and then I'll show you where we go from then. Now that I then reached the end of my bracelet here, I've got the full length that I want, and then obviously taking into account the clasp as well, whichever one you're going to be using. Then what I want to do is just finish off the edge down here, so it's a little bit more easy to use to put inside the ribbon ends that we're going to use to finish it off completely. So I've ended up here where I have the larger bead on my right side. It's the same thing regardless of where you end up. You could end up having it on the other side. You'll do the exact same thing just from the opposite side. So I'm just going to take my holding cord here, the one that's pointing straight out to the side. Like I said, if you ended up on the other side, it's pointing out in the opposite direction. But you're doing all the same things except just working opposite ways. So I'm going to take that holding cord, bring it back over the top of all the others there. It's still going to be a holding cord. Then we have all the other cords coming straight down from the piece, the end of the piece here. And then I'm going to take one at a time and make a row of knots all the way across, following the very last row that I've done here. So it's going to be going at a bit of an angle. I want to make sure to make the rows nice and tight together. Make a double half hitch with that cord and leave that out. Take the very next one and make a double half hitch. So I'm basically building up a row here all the way under the previous one, going all the way across to the other side, and I want to use every single one of the cords that's coming down below. So I now got all the way over to the other side here, as you can see, using every single one of those working cords that's going underneath the holding cord. So this is the very first row of that little end piece that we're going to do, and you can see as well it goes at a bit of an angle. So what we also want to end up with to fit inside the ribbon ends nicely is actually have a bit more of a straight line here. It's going to make it a bit easier to fit inside those ribbon ends. So the first thing, we need a bit of spacing here. So I need to create some more rows, just like the one that I just did. So I go back to the side where I started from, so the beginning of the row that I just did, take the very first card that's coming out, so that's the first working card we used on the previous row. That's the next holding card. Going to bring that over all the others, over to the same side that I did the first one. And then I'm just going to create another row underneath this. Again, make sure it's nice and tight. And this is really just to create some spacing, so we have enough work down here in the end to be able to put inside the ribbon end. So the ribbon end has actually got something to grab onto, but without obviously going and using the place where the beads are, because they obviously won't be able to fit inside the ribbon end. So again, just make your row all the way across. So now that I made it all the way over to the other side with this cord as well, making this row, I used up all the working cords that are coming underneath. Now as you can see here, we have the holding cord from the previous row. All I'm going to do with that to complete this row that I'm currently working on is bring that previous holding cord underneath the current holding cord and just use that as the next working cord and just do another double half hitch, and that just finishes off this row nicely while incorporating that previous holding cord into it as well. So just like that. And then we're going to end up getting rows of knots here that are building underneath each other. But obviously we don't want to make too many either. There's no reason for making too many. It's going to be too long of an ending piece. So all I'm going to do now is make one more row just like this. I'm going to end up having 3. And then once I've done that, I'm going to show you how I'm going to graduate them so we get more of a straight line on the edge there. So now that I've done my third row as well, this is where I'm going to keep making some rows of knots, but I'm going to graduate them, make them shorter and shorter. So it's the same principle. To start the next row, I'm going to go back to the beginning where I've started all the other rows as well. Bring the first one that was the working cord from the previous row over all the others. Start making my row here. With my double half hitches, taking one cord at a time out of the working cords that are coming out underneath this holding cord. And again, work my way towards the other side. But what I'm not going to do is go all the way, because that's how we're then going to get the more straight edge. It's not going to be completely straight, but that doesn't matter because it's going to go inside the ribbon end. So that's obviously going to cover it up. So I'm working my way towards it, and it's really a matter of judgment then. It's where you feel it's right to stop to get that more look of a straight line across. And like I said, it's not going to be straight, it's more to make it fit better within the ribbon end. So I'm getting towards the end. I'm going to grab my next one, make a double half hitch, like that. And then I have 2 working cords left here, and obviously the holding cord from the previous row. And I actually think I'm going to stop at this point. So just put them out to the side, and the working cord, the holding cord that you were just using to make this row. So I've now completed that row. You can see as well that's shorter than the previous one because we're trying to get that straight edge. So all you do is stop before you complete the row. Go back to the beginning to make the next row. And start it the exact same way. And again, this is then just a matter of judgment where you want to stop this one. To make sure it looks a bit more like a straight edge. And then compared to the other rows there, the more rows you then have, the more easy it's going to be to make that judgment. So sometimes you might want to leave 2 working cords out like I did on the previous one, and sometimes you might just want to leave 1 out. But like I said, it really doesn't matter because it's going to be hidden inside the ribbon end. Again, I've got 2 working cords left, and I'm just going to leave them out as well. A straight enough edge there. Go back to the beginning. Start my next row, which is probably going to be the last one here, because I think I'm actually just going to do this 1 knot. So that very last row has only got this 1 knot because I only had 1 working cord left anyway, so there's no need to use that. And like I said, it doesn't have to be completely straight or anything, you can see it isn't, but you just get that sense of a straight edge just so it fits nicely within the ribbon end. Now that we then have that done here, you can see we have this little end on the bracelet. That's going to make it easier, and then be able to finish it off with the ribbon end. And we then have this, then all that's left to do on this end is actually then finish off the excess obviously of the cords, because they're just sticking out here. And also the other end you want to do the exact same thing, so just undo your knot, that's just temporary, and then you can make your rows in the exact same way. So to finish off all these cords, if you're using a synthetic cord, you can do it the same way as I'm doing here. If you're using a natural cord, you're going to have to use glue to just glue off the very ends where you made your last knots, and then you can cut down the rest, cut the excess of your cords off. But for a synthetic cord like this, I'm going to take my scissors and cut off the excess, but leaving about a couple of millimeters from where my last few knots are. So something like that. And get rid of the excess cord. And then what I'm going to do is take a lighter here, and obviously this is a flame we're working with, so you do want to be careful, it does get hot. And then I'm just going to take my flame and singe down the ends of the cord, because first of all it gets rid of the excess, but it also finishes off an edge really nicely, and then it actually seals the cord in place so your knots won't come undone. So just enough here to get rid of it. And again, it doesn't have to be neat or anything, because like I said, it's inside the ribbon end. So just to show you, it's going to end up sitting right on the edge just like that. So it's going to be a really nice and neat finish. What I'm then also going to do is use some glue for the extra security inside the ribbon end, and I'm just using my E6000 here. So I'm just going to get a bit on a toothpick just to apply it with, and it doesn't have to be very much, just enough to cover the inside of the ribbon end, because obviously you also don't want it spilling out when you clamp it down. Then I'm just going to place my glue inside here, make sure it goes up and down the sides of the ribbon end, and if you got what you think might be too much, you can just take a little bit out. It really doesn't need to be that much glue, it's just for the extra security. And then I like to just put the leftover glue on the end of the bracelet, the part that's going to go inside the ribbon end, because you get a really nice strong bond as well then. They're going to really adhere nicely together. So just something like this. And then all I do is put my ribbon end in the end of my piece here, and then make sure it sits exactly how you want it to, and it sits straight. And then I'm going to grab a pair of flat nose pliers, and then we need to squeeze this down. So just keep hold of your piece, make sure it kind of stays in place while you're squeezing it. And I'd like to just go gently from side to side, just gentle presses a bit at a time. And then when I feel like I'm almost close to being all the way down, and just double check it's still sitting where you want it to, so sitting in the middle there. Then I'm going to go in and do one final squeeze all over. It's really hard to press it down just nicely. Then I also like to go in from the side, just to make sure you close up the sides a bit so they're not too open. Just like that. And then you have that end finished. And obviously, like I said, do the exact same thing with the other end as well. Then you can use these little holes or loops in the ribbon ends to attach whatever findings you want to use. So now that I then finished off both ends here, and I've attached both my clasp and my extended chain, you can obviously use whatever clasp you want to, then I have my finished bracelet. And the nice thing about this as well, as you can see, it gets a bit of a natural curve to it. It's going to make it really nice and comfortable around the wrist. And then you just use your clasp, and then you have your finished bracelet here. So it looks a little something like this. Obviously it can look completely different depending on what materials that you use, but then this is the finished piece. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial and found it useful, and thank you very much for watching. Hello there everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to make this macrame bracelet that's made up with all these connected hearts with beads in them. And this is what it looks like. So you have all your hearts here going from one end to the other. And then I just added a clasp and extend the chain, and then it's going to sit like this on your wrist. So it's going to be nice and comfortable because it's nice and flat there, really comfortable to wear, and it looks like this. It'll be perfect for Valentine's if you want to use it for that, but obviously you can use